Hello, champions. Welcome to the Self-Help Podcast, your weekly dose of motivation, every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, I'm Diep, Pham, the creator of this podcast and your companion on the path of life transformation. Here, you will discover all the right tools and the right mindsets to help you master your personal growth. Every week, we unlock science-backed strategies to help you master yourself, grow stronger, and level up in life. If you're ready to boost productivity, build confidence, and create lasting change, well, you're in the right place. And before we dive into today's episode, I want you to know that everything we cover, the resources, free templates, and actionable guides, is waiting for you right in the video description below. So don't stress about taking notes. Just listen, absorb, and today's episode is the 15 best time management books for beating your procrastination. Ready? Some questions need to be answered. How many times this week have you looked at your to-do list and felt completely overwhelmed? How many days have ended with you wondering where all the time went, even though you were busy from morning to night? And here's the real question. When was the last time you actually finished the one thing that would have made the biggest difference in your life? Time is the one resource no one can replenish, yet most of us struggle to manage it effectively. We live in an age of unprecedented distraction. Endless notifications, social media rabbit holes, streaming services that autoplay the next episode before we can even think about stopping. The modern professional juggles Slack messages, email threads, Zoom calls, and the constant pressure to stay productive while drowning in digital noise. The cost of poor time management isn't just missed deadlines or cluttered to-do lists. It's the promotion you didn't get because you couldn't focus on high-impact work. It's the business idea that stayed trapped in your head because you kept putting off the first step. It's the nagging guilt that follows you to bed each night when you realize another day slipped through your fingers without meaningful progress. From constant digital distractions to deep-rooted procrastination traps, effective time mastery has become more than a productivity hack. It's a survival skill for anyone who wants to thrive in their career, grow their business, or simply reclaim control over their days. And that's precisely why I wanted to dedicate today's entire episode to reviewing the 15 best time management books that can genuinely transform your life. These aren't just motivational fluff or recycled platitudes about waking up earlier or trying harder. These are meticulously researched, battle-tested guides written by neuroscientists, psychologists, productivity experts, and real-world practitioners who've helped millions of people break free from the cycle of busy but unproductive days. Now, I've spent years testing productivity frameworks myself. From the Pomodoro technique to elaborate project management systems. But it wasn't until I dove deep into the science and psychology behind focus, habits, and procrastination that everything clicked. And today, I'm sharing that journey with you, my champions. We're going to explore 15 incredible books. Each brings its own unique perspective, from neuroscience-based focus training to habit science, energy management, and classic productivity frameworks that have stood the test of time. Whether you're an overwhelmed entrepreneur, a corporate professional buried under meetings, or a creative struggling to finish projects, there's a book in this list that will speak directly to your specific challenge. And I want to be completely transparent with you. Leading this list are two books that I personally wrote because they address today's biggest challenges, distraction and procrastination, with fresh, science-backed approaches. But I'm not just going to pitch my own work. I'm going to give you honest, detailed reviews of 13 other outstanding books that have genuinely helped millions of people, including myself. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive into these game-changing books that could be the missing piece in your productivity puzzle. Let's start with number 1. The Focus Unleashed by Diep, Pham. Now, yes, this is my book, but let me tell you why I wrote it and why it might be exactly what you need right now. Think about this for a second. The average person checks their phone 96 times per day and switches between apps over 300 times. That's not a you problem, that's a human problem in the digital age. The Focus Unleashed was born from my own struggle with scattered attention and my deep dive into neuroscience to understand what was actually happening in my brain. Here's what makes this book different from older productivity frameworks. It's built specifically for the modern digital environment. I'm not going to tell you to just concentrate harder or use more willpower. Instead, I take you inside the brain's attention mechanisms, explaining exactly why your focus fractures, how digital environments hijack your neural pathways, and most importantly, how to rewire these patterns permanently. The book covers the neuroscience and psychology of attention with clarity that makes complex concepts accessible. Things like the prefrontal cortex's executive function or dopamine-driven distraction loops. But it never stays theoretical for long. Every scientific insight immediately translates into practical systems you can implement today. The core frameworks include mind decluttering systems that help you externalize mental chaos so your brain can focus on deep work instead of task management. Unlike vague advice to clear your mind, I provide specific protocols for cognitive offloading that free up mental bandwidth. Then there are focus training protocols that build your attention like a muscle. These aren't just meditation exercises, though mindfulness plays a role. They're structured practices that progressively extend your capacity for sustained, undistracted work sessions. The deep work strategies are tailored for today's reality, where most people cannot simply disconnect for 4 hours. You will learn how to create pockets of profound focus even in fragmented schedules. And the time-blocking architecture goes far beyond basic calendar management. This is about designing your day around your brain's natural rhythms, protecting your peak hours for cognitively demanding work, and building buffers that prevent schedule collapse when the unexpected inevitably happens. What truly distinguishes the Focus Unleashed is its recognition that we are fighting a new kind of enemy. Previous generations didn't contend with apps engineered by teams of behavioral psychologists, specifically designed to capture and hold attention. The algorithms feeding your social media, news, and entertainment are optimized using the same neuroscience principles. And this book teaches you how to fight back with equal sophistication. So who is this book best for? It's essential reading for professionals and entrepreneurs who feel like their attention has been shattered into 1,000 pieces. If you constantly feel scattered, if you start your day with clear priorities but end it wondering where the time went, if you're exhausted from context switching between tasks, yet somehow accomplish less than you planned, this book will feel like it was written specifically for you. It's particularly powerful for knowledge workers whose competitive advantage depends on producing high-quality cognitive output. For entrepreneurs and founders drowning in the tyranny of urgent tasks while strategic work languishes. For creative professionals who need extended focus blocks to do their best work. And for anyone who suspects their phone has become a problem but doesn't want generic digital detox advice. The book doesn't demand you become a monk or delete all your apps. Instead, it provides sophisticated strategies for maintaining focus in the real world, where you still need to stay connected, respond to clients, and navigate modern work environments. If distraction is your biggest enemy, and let's be honest, it probably is, the Focus Unleashed offers the most comprehensive, neuroscience-based system for taking back your attention and using it as the competitive advantage it should be. Now let's move to number 2. The Procrastination Killers, also by me, and this one tackles perhaps the most universally frustrating obstacle to productivity. Here's the thing about procrastination. We all know what we need to do. We understand the consequences of delay. We genuinely want to make progress. And yet, we scroll through social media instead of starting that proposal. We reorganize our workspace instead of making that difficult phone call. We research endlessly instead of actually building. Sound familiar? The Procrastination Killers approaches this maddening problem from an angle that most productivity books completely miss. Procrastination isn't a character flaw or a time management problem. It is a neurological and psychological pattern that can be understood, interrupted, and replaced with action-driving behaviors. I don't waste time with motivational speeches about willpower or discipline. Instead, the book dives deep into the actual mechanisms that cause procrastination. The brain's threat detection system that perceives challenging tasks as dangers to avoid. The dopamine system that prioritizes immediate gratification over delayed rewards. And the habit loops that make procrastination feel easier than taking action. The core frameworks include the trigger and response method, which is a game changer for understanding your personal procrastination patterns. You will learn to identify the specific triggers, whether they're internal feelings, external situations, or environmental cues, that activate your avoidance behaviors. And then systematically install new responses that lead to action instead of delay. This isn't about willpower. It's about intercepting automatic patterns and rerouting them. The discipline loop framework reveals how to build unstoppable momentum by stacking small wins. I explain that discipline isn't something you either have or don't have. It's a feedback loop that strengthens each time you follow through on a commitment. The book provides specific protocols for initiating this loop, even when you're starting from zero motivation. Then there are habit-based systems that remove the friction between intention and action. One of the book's most powerful insights is that procrastination often wins because the gap between deciding to do something and actually doing it contains too much resistance. By building habits that automate the transition from thought to action, you eliminate the window where procrastination typically strikes. And the neural rewiring techniques address procrastination at its root. This section gets into fascinating territory. How to literally change the neural pathways that default to avoidance. How to recondition your brain's reward system to derive satisfaction from completing tasks rather than avoiding them. And how to manage the anxiety that often underlies chronic procrastination. What makes this book crucial is its refusal to treat procrastination as a simple motivation problem. Many books assume you're already motivated and just need better systems. But what if the system breaks down precisely because motivation is unreliable? The Procrastination Killers builds frameworks that work even when, especially when, you don't feel like working. The book also addresses something most productivity literature ignores: the emotional component of procrastination. I acknowledge that we often avoid tasks not because they're difficult, but because they trigger anxiety, perfectionism, fear of failure, or imposter syndrome. The book provides compassionate but practical strategies for moving forward despite these feelings. Why does this book stand out? While many books assume you're already motivated and just need better organizational systems, The Procrastination Killers meets you where you actually are. Knowing what you should do but struggling to actually do it. This is the book I wish had existed 15 years ago when I spent months preparing to launch a business without ever actually launching. It would have shown me that my endless research and planning weren't due diligence. They were sophisticated procrastination dressed up as productivity. The science-backed fixes aren't theoretical. They are immediately applicable techniques you can use the same day you read them. Whether it's the 2-minute momentum starter that makes beginning any task almost effortless, or the future self-visualization protocol that helps you overcome present moment resistance, every strategy is designed for real humans with real resistance. If you're someone who knows what you want but can't stop putting it off, who has brilliant ideas that never move beyond the planning stage, who feels paralyzed by important tasks and escapes into trivial busywork, this book will finally give you the tools to break the pattern. All right, now that we've covered those two, let me walk you through 13 other exceptional books that deserve a place on your reading list. And I want to be super clear. These aren't just fillers. Each of these books has genuinely transformed millions of lives, and I'm going to give you honest insights into what makes each one valuable and who they're best suited for. So let's talk about number 3. Deep Work by Cal Newport. This book has become something of a modern classic, and for good reason. Newport's central premise is both simple and revolutionary. The ability to focus without distraction on cognitively demanding tasks is becoming increasingly valuable in our economy, while simultaneously becoming increasingly rare. Newport defines deep work as professional activities performed in a state of distraction, free concentration, that push your cognitive capabilities to their limit. This kind of work creates new value, improves your skills, and is hard to replicate. In contrast, shallow work, those logistical tasks that don't require much thought, can easily be done by anyone and adds minimal value. The book makes a compelling case for why depth matters more than the appearance of busyness. Newport draws on examples from various fields, writers, academics, business executives, who've achieved extraordinary results by protecting their ability to work deeply. He contrasts this with the modern workplace's obsession with constant connectivity and visible busyness, which he argues is actually destroying our capacity for the work that matters most. Now, what are the strengths of deep work? It excels at making the philosophical and economic case for concentrated focus. Newport is a computer science professor, and his academic rigor shows in how thoroughly he builds his arguments. The book doesn't just tell you that focus matters. It proves why it matters, drawing on psychological research, economic theory, and compelling real-world examples. The 4 rules Newport presents: work deeply, embrace boredom, quit social media, and drain the shallows, provide a solid framework for restructuring your work life around deep work principles. His various scheduling philosophies, monastic, bimodal, rhythmic, and journalistic, acknowledge that different people and professions require different approaches. But let's talk about some considerations. For all its strengths, deep work was written for a somewhat idealized work environment. Newport's own career as a tenured professor allows him freedoms that most professionals don't have. If you're a parent, a manager with direct reports, or anyone whose job requires regular collaboration and communication, some of his advice, like disappearing for days at a time, simply isn't practical. The book also predates many of the most sophisticated distraction technologies we now face. Written in 2016, it couldn't anticipate how much more aggressive attention-capturing algorithms would become, or how the pandemic would blur the lines between home and work even further. That said, deep work remains essential reading for anyone serious about productivity. Even if you can't implement every strategy Newport suggests, the core insight, that your ability to produce valuable work depends on your ability to concentrate, is more important than ever. Number 4. Getting Things Done by David Allen. This is the productivity equivalent of a Swiss Army knife. A comprehensive system designed to handle any task, project, or commitment that crosses your path. First published in 2001 and updated in 2015, it's remarkable how well the core methodology has aged. The GTD system revolves around 5 steps. Capture, collect everything that has your attention. Clarify, process what each item means and what to do about it. Organize, put it where it belongs. Reflect, review frequently. And engage, simply do. The genius of this system is that it provides a complete workflow for everything, from buy milk to launch new product line. Allen's central insight is that your mind is designed for having ideas, not storing them. Every commitment, task, or project you're trying to remember occupies mental bandwidth, what he calls open loops. The GTD system systematically closes these loops by capturing everything in trusted external systems, which frees your mind to focus on actually doing the work, rather than remembering what work needs to be done. The strengths? The GTD system is remarkably comprehensive. If you fully implement it, you'll have a framework for managing literally everything in your work and personal life. Many people who adopt GTD describe an almost euphoric sense of mental clarity. The relief of knowing that nothing is falling through the cracks because everything lives in a trusted system. The methodology is tool agnostic, which means it works whether you prefer paper notebooks, dedicated GTD apps, or a combination of systems. It's also scalable. The same principles work whether you're managing a few personal projects or coordinating complex professional initiatives with dozens of moving parts. Now, the considerations. The main criticism of GTD is that it can feel overwhelming, especially for beginners. The system has a lot of moving parts. Context lists, project lists, waiting for lists, someday maybe lists, and so on. Some people spend so much time maintaining their GTD system that it becomes its own form of productive procrastination. The book itself can be a bit dry. Alan writes more like a consultant, which he is, than a storyteller, and the examples sometimes feel dated. The 2015 update addressed some of this, but it's still very much a manual rather than an engaging narrative. But here's the thing. If you're someone who feels constantly overwhelmed by everything you need to track, if important tasks regularly slip through the cracks, or if you spend mental energy worrying about whether you're forgetting something, GTD can be genuinely life-changing. It provides structure where there was chaos and certainty where there was anxiety. Let's keep moving. Number 5. Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. This book takes its memorable title from a Mark Twain quote. If it's your job to eat a frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. And if it's your job to eat 2 frogs, it's best to eat the biggest one first. The frog is your most important, usually most challenging task, the one you're most likely to procrastinate on. This book is refreshingly straightforward. Identify your most important task, do it first, and do it every day. Everything else is commentary on this central theme. Tracy presents 21 practical methods for overcoming procrastination and getting more done in less time. The power of this approach lies in its simplicity. Many of us spend our days doing everything except the one task that would actually move the needle. We answer emails, attend meetings, complete small tasks, and stay busy, but avoid the hard, important work that would create real results. By forcing yourself to eat the frog first thing, you ensure that your most important work gets done before the day derails into reactive mode. Strengths? Eat That Frog is one of the most accessible productivity books available. It's short, clear, and immediately actionable. You can read it in a couple of hours and start implementing the strategies the next morning. Tracy's writing style is motivational without being preachy, and his decades of experience as a business consultant shine through in practical, real-world advice. The book's focus on ruthless prioritization is its greatest gift. In a world of infinite tasks and finite time, knowing what not to do is as important as knowing what to do. Tracy provides clear frameworks for identifying your frogs, the 20% of tasks that will generate 80% of your results. The Abdicate method alone is worth the price of the book. It's a simple system for categorizing tasks. Tasks are very important with serious consequences if not done. B. Tasks are important with mild consequences. C. Tasks have no consequences. D. Tasks should be delegated. And E. Tasks should be eliminated. This framework cuts through the illusion that everything is urgent and important. Considerations. The book's simplicity is also its limitation. If you're looking for deep psychological insights into why you procrastinate or sophisticated systems for managing complex projects, you won't find them here. Tracy's approach is more motivational and tactical than it is scientific or systematic. Some readers find the repetition excessive. The core message of do your most important task first gets restated in various ways throughout the book. And while the strategies are practical, they require consistent discipline to maintain, which the book doesn't deeply address. However, If you're someone who gets paralyzed by productivity systems that are too complex, or if you need a simple, powerful principle to organize your days around, Eat That Frog delivers exactly what it promises. Here is number 6. Atomic Habits by James Clear. Now this one has become a phenomenon since its 2018 publication, selling millions of copies and transforming how people think about behavior change. While it's often categorized as a habits book rather than strictly a time management book, the two are inseparable. Your habits are how you spend your time, and improving your time management ultimately means improving your habits. The book's core premise is that tiny changes create remarkable results. Not through dramatic overnight transformations, but through the compound effect of small improvements repeated consistently. Clear argues that if you get 1% better each day for a year, you'll end up 37 times better by the end. Conversely, if you get 1% worse each day, you'll decline nearly to zero. Clear presents a 4-step framework for building good habits and breaking bad ones. Make it obvious. Design your environment to make cues visible. Make it attractive. Pair actions you need to do with actions you want to do. Make it easy. Reduce friction for good habits. And make it satisfying. Create immediate rewards for completing habits. The strengths? Atomic Habits succeeds brilliantly at demystifying behavior change. Clear draws on psychology, neuroscience, and his own extensive research to explain not just what to do, but why it works. The book is packed with compelling stories and practical examples that make abstract concepts concrete. The frameworks are remarkably versatile. Whether you're trying to exercise more, write daily, eat better, or manage your time more effectively, the principles apply. Clear shows how to make desired behaviors automatic and how to break the automaticity of undesired behaviors. One of the book's most valuable insights is the focus on systems over goals. Clear argues that goals are about the results you want to achieve, while systems are about the processes that lead to those results. Winners and losers have the same goals. What separates them is the quality of their systems. This reframe is particularly powerful for time management. Instead of setting goals to be more productive, you build systems that make productivity inevitable. The concept of identity-based habits is equally transformative. Clear explains that the most effective way to change your behavior is to focus not on what you want to achieve, but on who you wish to become. Instead of, I want to finish my project, the identity-based approach is, I am someone who consistently follows through on commitments. This subtle shift creates more lasting change. Considerations. While the book is excellent, it's worth noting that Clear's framework makes building habits sound easier than it often is in practice. The advice is solid, but applying it consistently, especially when facing real challenges like chronic stress, health issues, or chaotic life circumstances, requires more support than the book alone can provide. That said, Atomic Habits is essential reading for anyone serious about time management, because ultimately, your time management is the result of your habits. Clear gives you the tools to build the habits that create the life you want. Now let's talk about number 7. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. This is one of those rare books that transcends the business and self-help categories to become a cultural touchstone. First published in 1989, it has sold over 40 million copies and influenced everyone from CEOs to teachers to parents. Covey presents a principle-centered approach to personal and interpersonal effectiveness. The 7 habits build upon each other. Be proactive. Begin with the end in mind. Put first things first. These 3 habits focus on personal effectiveness. Think win-win. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Synergize. These 3 focus on interpersonal effectiveness. And sharpen the saw, which focuses on renewal. The time management content centers on Covey's famous time management matrix, which categorizes activities into 4 quadrants based on urgency and importance. Quadrant 1 contains crises and deadlines, urgent and important. Quadrant 2 contains prevention, planning, and relationship building, important but not urgent. Quadrant 3 contains interruptions and busy work, urgent but not important. And Quadrant 4 contains time wasters, neither urgent nor important. Covey's fundamental insight: that truly effective people spend most of their time in Quadrant 2. These are the activities that matter most to long-term success: strategic planning, building relationships, developing skills, prevention, and preparation. Yet because they're not urgent, they're the easiest to postpone in favor of the urgent but unimportant demands that fill most people's days. The book's holistic approach is its greatest strength. Covey doesn't just tell you how to manage your schedule. He challenges you to align your time with your values, to build your life around principles rather than react to circumstances, to think deeply about what you want to accomplish and why. This makes the book feel as relevant today as when it was written, because principles don't become obsolete the way tactics do. Considerations: The 7 Habits is not a quick read. It's dense with concepts that require reflection to fully absorb. Some readers find Covey's writing style a bit formal or even preachy, and the anecdotes, particularly in the original edition, can feel dated. The book also requires genuine introspection and self-honesty. It's easy to nod along with Covey's principles while continuing to live reactively. Actually implementing the habits, especially being proactive rather than reactive, and prioritizing Quadrant 2 activities over urgent distractions, demands sustained effort and often uncomfortable change. But if you're looking for more than productivity tactics, if you want a framework for effectiveness that integrates time management with character development, principle-centered living, and genuine leadership, the 7 Habits remains unmatched. It's not just about getting more done. It's about making sure you're doing what matters most. All right, champions, we're making great progress here. Let's dive into number 8. Essentialism by McKeown. This book offers a powerful antidote to the modern epidemic of doing too much. In a world that constantly pushes us to do more, McKeown makes a compelling case for doing less, but better. The essential philosophy is simple. Instead of making a millimeter of progress in a million directions, make significant progress in the few directions that truly matter. McKeown defines essentialism as a disciplined, systematic approach for determining where our highest point of contribution lies, then making execution of those things almost effortless. It is not about time management in the traditional sense. It is about priority management and the courage to say no to nearly everything so you can say yes to what's truly essential. The book is structured around 3 core principles. Explore, discerning the vital few from the trivial many. Eliminate, cutting out everything that isn't essential. And execute, making execution effortless through systems and routines. Essentialism succeeds where many productivity books fail. It tackles the root problem rather than just the symptoms. The problem isn't that we need better systems for doing more. It's that we're trying to do too much in the first place. McKeown provides both philosophical justification and practical strategies for becoming more selective about what deserves your time and energy. The book's most powerful sections deal with the art of saying no. McKeown acknowledges that turning down opportunities, requests, and even good ideas is psychologically difficult. We fear disappointing others, missing out, or closing doors. But he convincingly argues that when you say yes to something non-essential, you're automatically saying no to something that could be essential. The question isn't whether you'll say no. It's only what you'll say no to. McKeown introduces the 90% rule. When evaluating an opportunity, if it's not a clear 90% or above on your scale of importance, automatically reject it. This simple heuristic eliminates the mental exhaustion of weighing every single option. If something isn't a hell yes, it should be a no, The concept of protecting the asset, recognizing that you are your most important asset, and that rest, play, and sleep aren't optional luxuries, but essential for sustained high performance, is particularly valuable in a culture that glorifies overwork. Now, some considerations. Some readers find essentialism idealistic, particularly if they're in life stages or career situations where they genuinely have limited control over their commitments. If you're a single parent working 2 jobs, just say no to non-essential tasks isn't always realistic advice. However, if you're overwhelmed by too many commitments, if you feel stretched impossibly thin across too many priorities, if you suspect that doing everything means you're doing nothing particularly well, essentialism will resonate profoundly. It gives you permission to stop trying to do it all and provides a framework for identifying what truly matters. Number 9. The One Thing, by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. This book takes the concept of prioritization to its extreme conclusion. At any given moment, there is one thing you could do that would make everything else easier or unnecessary. The book's central question: what's the one thing I can do, such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? This question serves as a filtering mechanism to cut through the noise of competing priorities. Keller, the founder of Keller Williams Realty, brings both business acumen and personal experience to the book. He argues that the most successful people and companies are those that identify their one thing and pursue it with singular focus, rather than dispersing their energy across multiple priorities simultaneously. The book challenges several productivity myths. That everything matters equally, it doesn't. That multitasking is efficient, it's not. That discipline is required for everything. You only need enough discipline to build the right habit. And that willpower is always available. It's a finite resource that depletes throughout the day. The power of the one thing lies in its laser focus on the priority-setting process. Keller provides a domino framework that's particularly illuminating. When you identify the right lead domino and knock it down, it triggers a cascade that topples all the subsequent dominoes. In other words, some actions are exponentially more valuable than others because they create momentum that carries forward. The time-blocking strategy the book recommends is highly practical. Block 4 hours every day for your one thing, ideally in the morning when willpower is highest and distractions are fewest. During this time, you focus exclusively on your most important priority, with no meetings, no email, no phone calls. This protected time becomes sacred space for the work that actually moves the needle. The book's emphasis on thinking big while acting small is particularly valuable. Keller encourages readers to set goals so ambitious they seem impossible, then work backward to identify the one thing they need to do today to move toward that goal. This connects daily actions to long-term vision in a way that makes massive goals feel achievable. Considerations. The book's singular focus on the one thing can feel oversimplified for people managing genuinely complex roles. Parents can't choose just one thing. Neither can managers, entrepreneurs, or most professionals. The reality is that life requires juggling multiple important domains: health, relationships, career, finances, and so on. But if you struggle with competing priorities and genuinely don't know where to focus your limited time and energy, the one thing provides a clear methodology. The focusing question alone, asked consistently, can dramatically improve decision-making about how you spend your time. Let's move to number 10. Wow, what a long list! Make Time by Knapp and John Zeratsky. This book comes from 2 Google Ventures design partners who realized that despite working at one of the world's most innovative companies, they felt constantly busy, distracted, and like they never had time for what mattered. Their response was to develop a flexible, design thinking-inspired framework for taking control of daily time and attention. Unlike many productivity books that present rigid systems, Make Time offers a choose-your-own-adventure approach. The book presents 87 different tactics organized around a simple 4-step framework. Highlight: choose one priority for the day. Laser: beat distraction to make time for your highlight. Energize: take care of your body to recharge your brain. And reflect: adjust and improve your system. The philosophy is refreshingly anti-dogmatic. Knapp and Zeratsky acknowledge that different tactics work for different people in different situations. They encourage experimentation. Try a tactic for a day or a week, observe the results, keep what works and discard what doesn't. The highlight concept is deceptively powerful. Each day, you choose one activity to prioritize, something that, if you accomplish it, will make the day feel successful. This could be something urgent, something important, or simply something you want to experience joy from. By making this intentional choice first thing in the morning, you prevent the day from being entirely reactive. The laser section provides dozens of practical tactics for managing technology's attention assault. These range from logistical moves like deleting social media apps from your phone, to behavioral strategies like bundling temptations, to environmental design like setting up distraction-free zones. What's refreshing is that the authors don't judge you for wanting to use technology. They just help you use it intentionally rather than compulsively. The Energize section recognizes something many productivity books ignore. Your brain runs on your body. You can't focus effectively if you're exhausted, undernourished, or sedentary. The tactics here, everything from eat real food to go outside to exercise every day, aren't revolutionary, but the authors make them feel achievable rather than overwhelming. The reflect habit, taking a few minutes each evening to note what worked and what didn't, turns the whole system into a continuous improvement loop. Over time, you develop a personalized productivity toolkit built from tactics you've actually tested, rather than generic advice. Considerations. With 87 tactics, some readers find Make Time overwhelming despite its flexibility. The abundance of choices can paradoxically make it harder to know where to start. However, if you've tried rigid productivity systems and found them unsustainable, if you want a framework that adapts to your life rather than demanding you adapt to it, Make Time is an excellent choice. Number 11. Indistractable by Nir Eyal. This book arrives with a unique credential. Eyal literally wrote the book on how to hook users, teaching companies how to create products that capture and hold attention. In Indistractable, he turns that knowledge around, teaching readers how to defend themselves against the very manipulation tactics he helped popularize. The book's core insight is that distraction isn't primarily about external triggers, notifications, emails, colleagues interrupting, though those matter. The real driver is internal triggers. The uncomfortable emotional states like boredom, anxiety, uncertainty, stress, that we try to escape through distraction. Understanding and managing these internal triggers is the key to becoming indistractable. Eyal presents a 4-part model. Master internal triggers, address the discomfort that drives distraction. Make time for traction, schedule your day around your values. Hack back external triggers, redesign your environment. And prevent distraction with packs, create pre-commitments that prevent you from getting distracted. The distinction between internal and external triggers is genuinely illuminating. Most productivity advice focuses on eliminating external distractions, but Eyal demonstrates that even if you eliminate every notification and interruption, you'll still get distracted if you haven't addressed the underlying discomfort that makes distraction appealing. The book's tactics for managing internal triggers are particularly valuable. Eyal teaches the 10-minute rule. When you feel the urge to distract yourself, wait 10 minutes. Often the urge passes. He also introduces surfing the urge, a mindfulness technique adapted from addiction recovery that helps you observe the discomfort without immediately reacting to it. The section on scheduling is counterintuitive but powerful. Rather than starting with work tasks, Eyal suggests scheduling your values first. Time for relationships, health, personal growth. Then schedule work. Finally, see what time is left for reactive tasks. This ensures your life reflects your values rather than just your obligations. The concept of pre-commitments or Ulysses pacts, creating barriers that prevent your future self from giving in to distraction, provides practical tools like website blockers, social contracts with accountability partners, or financial stakes that make distraction costly. Considerations? Some of Eyal's advice requires significant life flexibility. His recommendation to respond to work messages only at specific scheduled times, for instance, isn't realistic for many professional roles where responsiveness is part of the job description. That said, Indistractable is essential reading for anyone serious about managing attention in the 21st century. Eyal brings insider knowledge to help you understand exactly how and why you're being manipulated, and more importantly, how to stop it. Number 12. The Power of Full Engagement by Jim Loehr and Tony Schwartz. This book offers a fundamentally different approach to productivity. Stop managing time and start managing energy. Authors Jim Loehr, a performance psychologist who worked with world-class athletes, and Tony Schwartz argue that time is finite, and all hours aren't equal, but energy is renewable and manageable. The book identifies 4 energy dimensions: physical, basic survival; emotional, feeling; mental, thinking; and spiritual, purpose and meaning. High performance requires cultivating positive energy in all 4 dimensions, and learning to rhythmically expand and recover energy, rather than trying to maintain constant output. The core principle draws from Loehr's work with professional athletes. The best performers aren't those who can sustain effort indefinitely, but those who've mastered the oscillation between energy expenditure and energy renewal. They work in intense bursts, then recover fully before the next sprint. Most professionals, in contrast, operate in a state of chronic partial stress. Never fully engaged, never fully recovered. The energy framework reframes productivity in a way that feels immediately true. We've all experienced trying to work when exhausted. You can sit at your desk for 8 hours but accomplish what a fresh, energized version of you could do in 2. The Power of Full Engagement acknowledges this reality and builds a system around it. The physical energy section provides actionable strategies. Eat smaller meals more frequently to maintain stable glucose levels. Hydrate properly. Exercise regularly. Get sufficient sleep. These aren't new insights, but Loehr and Schwartz frame them not as health advice, but as performance imperatives. The emotional energy discussion is particularly valuable. The authors explain how negative emotions like anger, fear, frustration are energy drains, while positive emotions like joy, connection, confidence are energy sources. They provide specific rituals for managing emotional energy, everything from expressing appreciation to others to taking brief recovery breaks between intense meetings. The spiritual energy section addresses purpose and meaning. Loehr and Schwartz argue that knowing why you're working, having a sense of purpose beyond external rewards, provides the deepest and most sustainable energy source. When work aligns with your values and contributes to something meaningful, you access reserves of energy that willpower alone cannot generate. Considerations? The book's emphasis on rituals and routines is valuable, but requires significant discipline to maintain. Creating and sustaining positive rituals across all 4 energy dimensions is itself demanding work, particularly when you're already feeling depleted. However, if you've been approaching productivity as a time management problem and hitting a wall, The Power of Full Engagement offers a paradigm shift. It's particularly valuable for people who are busy but burnt out, who complete their task lists but feel increasingly exhausted and less effective. Number 13. 168 Hours, by Laura Vanderkam. This book challenges one of our most pervasive beliefs: that we don't have enough time. Vanderkam's counterargument is mathematical. There are 168 hours in a week. Even if you sleep 8 hours a night, that's 56 hours, and work 50 hours, you still have 62 hours left. Where does that time actually go? Vanderkam's central exercise is deceptively simple but powerfully revealing. Track your time for a week. Write down what you actually do every half hour. Most people who do this exercise are shocked by what they discover. Hours vanishing into television, social media, or activities they don't even particularly enjoy. The time isn't missing. We're just unconscious about how we're using it. The book argues that time management is really priority management. People who claim they don't have time for exercise, side projects, relationships, or hobbies aren't being honest. They have time. They're just allocating it to other things, often by default rather than by design. Vanderkam's approach is to identify what matters most to you, schedule it first, and build everything else around it. The time tracking exercise alone makes this book worthwhile. It is impossible to improve what you don't measure, and most of us have wildly inaccurate beliefs about how we spend time. The data from a tracking week provides brutal clarity about the gap between our stated priorities and our actual behavior. Vanderkam's framework for thinking about time in terms of full weeks, rather than individual days, is liberating. A bad day doesn't ruin your productivity if you zoom out to see the whole week. You can work intensely some days and lightly others. You can exercise 3 times in a weekend if weekday mornings are impossible. This flexibility makes sustainable time management feel achievable. The sections on family and career integration challenge the work-life balance metaphor. Vanderkam argues that thinking of work and life as competing for fixed time creates unnecessary tension. Instead, she advocates for integration, bringing your full self to work and career ambitions home, and viewing both as parts of a full, rewarding life. Considerations? The book's tone can feel out of touch with economic reality. Vanderkam's examples often feature professionals with significant incomes and resources, people who can afford house cleaners, childcare, and meal delivery. However, if you genuinely believe you don't have time for what matters, and you're willing to confront the reality of how you actually spend your 168 hours each week, this book can be genuinely transformative. It is a reality check that refuses to accept, "I don't have time" as a final answer. Now we are moving to the number 14. When, by Daniel Pink. This book explores a dimension of productivity that most time management books ignore entirely: timing. Pink synthesizes research from chronobiology, psychology, and economics to demonstrate that when we do things matters as much as what we do or how we do it. The book's central insight is that we're not the same person at different times of day. Our cognitive abilities, mood, and performance fluctuate dramatically based on circadian rhythms. Most people experience a peak in the morning, a trough in the early afternoon, and a recovery in the late afternoon or evening. Understanding your personal pattern and scheduling accordingly can dramatically improve performance. Pink divides his analysis into 3 sections. The day, how to harness the patterns of daily life. Beginnings, how to start right. And endings, how to finish well. Throughout, he combines scientific research with practical applications, explaining not just what the science shows, but how to use that knowledge. The day patterns section is immediately useful. Pink explains that analytical work requiring sharp focus should be scheduled during your peak period, morning for most people. Creative work that benefits from looser connections and less inhibited thinking actually performs better during the trough or recovery periods when your mental filter is slightly weakened. The discussion of breaks is particularly valuable. Pink presents research showing that breaks aren't signs of weakness or time wasted. They're essential for sustained performance. But not all breaks are equal. The most restorative breaks involve movement, nature, social connection, and complete detachment from work. The worst breaks involve staying at your desk and switching from work tasks to checking email or social media. The section on beginnings explores how starting points create momentum that carries forward. Fresh starts, whether New Year's, a new semester, a birthday, or even just Monday, provide psychological clean slates that make behavior change easier. Understanding this, you can deliberately create fresh starts to leverage this motivational boost. The ending section reveals that we're disproportionately influenced by how experiences conclude. This applies to everything from career transitions to vacation planning, to the structure of presentations. Pink provides tactics for creating meaningful endings that boost motivation and satisfaction. Considerations? Some readers find when more interesting than actionable. The science is fascinating, but translating it into daily practice requires effort the book doesn't always fully support. That said, when fills a genuine gap in productivity literature. Most time management books assume all hours are interchangeable, which is demonstrably false. By understanding your chronobiology and scheduling accordingly, even imperfectly, you can accomplish significantly more with the same effort. And finally, number 15. The Productivity Project by Chris Bailey. This book takes an unusual approach to productivity literature. Rather than presenting a pre-existing system or theory, Bailey documents his year-long experiment living as productively as possible. He tried every productivity technique he could find. From waking at 5:30 a.m. to elaborate time tracking to extreme digital detox. And he reports what actually worked. The result is part memoir, part productivity guide, and part scientific review. Bailey tested meditation retreats and caffeine elimination, experimented with working 90 hours per week, and then just 20, tracked every minute of his time for months, and interviewed dozens of productivity experts. The book distills these experiments into practical lessons about attention management, energy management, and time management. Bailey's key takeaway is that productivity isn't about doing more. It's about doing what's important. He identifies 3 core productivity ingredients. Time, how much time you have. Attention, how focused you are. And energy, how much physical and mental energy you have. True productivity requires managing all 3. The experimental approach makes the Productivity Project more relatable than books written from authority or expertise. Bailey presents himself as a curious guinea pig, rather than a productivity guru, which makes his discoveries feel more credible. When he reports that meditation significantly improved his focus, or that disconnecting from the internet for 3 months was transformative but unsustainable, it carries weight precisely because he actually did these things rather than just reading about them. The book's treatment of biological prime time, identifying when you're naturally most energetic and focused, then protecting that time for important work, provides a practical framework anyone can use. The rule of 3 that Bailey developed is elegantly simple. At the beginning of each day and week, identify 3 things you want to accomplish. Not 20, not 10. 3. This forces brutal prioritization while remaining achievable. Many readers report that this alone transformed their productivity. Bailey's discussion of procrastination distinguishes between tasks that are boring but necessary versus tasks that trigger deeper resistance. For boring tasks, he recommends adding challenges or rewards to make them engaging. For tasks you're avoiding due to anxiety or fear, he suggests breaking them into the smallest possible first step to overcome the activation energy barrier. Considerations? Because the book documents experiments rather than presenting a unified system, it can feel scattered. Some readers prefer the clarity of a single methodology over a collection of tactics and insights. However, the Productivity Project shines as an honest, scientifically grounded exploration of what productivity actually means and how to achieve it. Bailey's willingness to report failures alongside successes makes the book trustworthy. His conclusion, that productivity ultimately means spending your time on what's important to you, cuts through the noise of productivity culture to reach something fundamental. All right, champions, we have just walked through 15 incredible books together. Now let me help you figure out which one is right for you, because here's the truth. There is no single best book that works for everyone. The right fit depends on your current struggle, your work environment, your personality, and your goals. So let me break this down for you. If distraction is your biggest enemy, start with The Focus Unleashed. Unlike older productivity books that were written before smartphones became attention, destruction devices, this book is built specifically for the modern digital environment. The neuroscience-based approach explains not just what to do, but why your focus fractures in the first place. You can pair it with Indistractable for a comprehensive attack on the distraction problem from both neurological and behavioral angles. If procrastination stalls you, The Procrastination Killers is your starting point. Most productivity books assume you're already taking action and just need better organization. This book meets you where you actually are. Knowing what you need to do but struggling to do it. No amount of task management will help until you address the psychological and neurological patterns keeping you stuck. If you want a proven system, choose between getting things done and deep work depending on your specific needs. GTD is comprehensive. IT handles everything from grocery lists to complex multi-year projects. But it requires significant upfront investment to implement. Deep work is narrower but deeper. It's specifically about protecting your ability to do cognitively demanding work in a distracted world. If you want habit-based mastery, Atomic Habits is the clear choice. Since your time management ultimately reflects your habits, changing those habits changes everything. This book is particularly valuable if you've repeatedly tried to change your behavior through willpower alone and failed. If you want timeless principles, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People never goes out of style because it's built on principles rather than tactics. Covey's time management matrix provides a framework you'll use for the rest of your life. If you're drowning in commitments, Essentialism gives you permission to do less but better. This book is particularly valuable if you're a people pleaser who struggles to decline requests, or if you feel spread impossibly thin across too many priorities. If you need extreme prioritization, The One Thing strips away complexity to focus on the single action that makes everything else easier. Choose this if you're paralyzed by too many competing priorities and need a clear framework for deciding what matters most. If you need flexible, customizable tools, Make Time offers 87 tactics you can mix and match, based on what works for your specific situation. This book is ideal if you've tried rigid systems and found them unsustainable. If energy is your limiting factor, The Power of Full Engagement reframes productivity around energy management rather than time management. If you're accomplishing your tasks but feeling increasingly burnt out, this book provides practical strategies for maintaining sustainable high performance. If you feel time-starved, 168 Hours challenges the belief that you don't have enough time by forcing you to confront how you actually spend your 168 hours each week. You will likely discover it is actually a prioritization problem in disguise. If timing is your blind spot, one introduces chronobiology into your productivity approach. Understanding that your cognitive abilities fluctuate throughout the day, and scheduling accordingly, can dramatically improve results with the same effort. If you want tested tactics, The Productivity Project provides a relatable, experiment-based approach. The rule of 3 alone makes it worthwhile. And if immediate wins matter, Eat That Frog is the most accessible book on this list. You can read it in one sitting and implement the core strategy starting tomorrow. Here is what I know from my own productivity journey and from observing thousands of others. Reading these books won't change anything by itself. I've known people who've read dozens of productivity books yet remain as scattered and ineffective as ever. Reading is step one. Implementation is everything. My recommendation: start with the book that matches your biggest challenge today. Whether that's procrastination, distraction, or prioritization. Read it actively, taking notes and identifying specific strategies to implement. Then, and this is crucial, commit to applying at least 3 key tactics from the book for 30 days before picking up another productivity book. Productivity systems fail not because they're inadequate, but because we abandon them before they become automatic. Any of these 15 books can transform your effectiveness, but only if you actually do what they recommend consistently enough for the strategies to become habits. And look, I want to be completely transparent with you. For readers ready to finally beat procrastination or reclaim focus, The Focus Unleashed and The Procrastination Killers are 2 of the most actionable starting points. These books address the 2 biggest obstacles modern professionals face: distraction and delay, with fresh neuroscience-backed approaches that work in today's digital environment. They're built specifically for the challenges you are facing right now, not the productivity challenges of 20 or 30 years ago. But whichever book you choose from this list, remember this: consistent application is what turns reading into results. The perfect productivity system you never implement is infinitely less valuable than an imperfect system you actually use. Start somewhere. Start today. Your future self, the one who finally broke free from distraction and procrastination to build the career and life you want, will thank you for it. The time you've been waiting for won't magically appear. You have to create it, protect it, and use it intentionally. These 15 books show you how. Now it's your turn to act. Now, before we wrap up, I want you to do something for me. Head over to my website at diep.org. That's DIEPPHAM.org. I've created an incredible resource library specifically for this episode. You will find downloadable templates, action guides, and checklists for implementing the strategies from these books. We're talking about focus tracking templates that help you identify your peak productivity hours. Digital detox checklists to reclaim your attention from technology. Productivity planners designed around the principles we discussed today. Time audit worksheets inspired by the 168 hours approach. Priority assessment tools to help you identify your one thing. And habit tracking systems based on Atomic Habits principles. All of these resources are completely free. No catches, no upsells. Just high-quality tools to support your personal transformation journey. I created them because I know that reading about productivity is one thing, but having practical tools to implement what you learn is what actually creates change. So don't just listen to this episode and move on with your day. Take action. Go to zepham.org, download the resources, and start implementing today. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Today. And if you want to dive even deeper into these topics, I've written 3 books available on Amazon Kindle that complement everything we discussed today. The Focus Unleashed, which we covered in detail. The Procrastination Killers, which addresses the psychology of delay. And The Death of Fear, which tackles the anxiety and fear that often underlie both procrastination and distraction. Feel free to check them out, give them a read, and let me know if they connect with you. I'd love to hear your feedback and success stories. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of the Self-Help Podcast. I hope you discovered something valuable, something you can immediately put into action to transform your focus and, ultimately, your life. If this episode resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our Tuesday morning releases. Share this episode with someone who could benefit from developing stronger focus and better time management. When we lift each other up, we all rise together as champions. Again, thanks a lot for tuning in, my champions. I'm Pham. the creator of this podcast and your companion on the path of life transformation. Until next time, stay focused, stay motivated, and keep winning the game of life.